Hello, my name is Miss Jones. I teach elementary school math, and welcome to my channel, Miss Math Jones. Today we're going to be working on our third grade Eureka Module 4, Lesson 7 homework. The objective for the homework is to apply the distributive property as a strategy to find the total area of a larger rectangle by adding two products. Now, this is just a strategy, and we're using the distributive property again, meaning we're going to break apart the larger number so that we can make two smaller equations to solve. Let's go ahead and get started. Number 1 says, label the side lengths of the shaded and unshaded rectangles. Then find the total area of the large rectangle by adding the areas of the two smaller rectangles. Again, we're using the distributive property. So we're going to be just breaking big arrays apart. So let's look at letter A. You notice we have one big array. Part of the array is gray, the other part is white. So they broke a large rectangle into two smaller rectangles to try to make it easier to solve. Okay, now if we were counting the length of the side, all of the units all together, then we would have 9. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's start counting the length under letter A on the rectangle, the entire length, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the actual length of this side is 9, but they broke it apart, right, into 5 and 4, because 5 plus 4 equals 9. So the whole thing is 9, which means the area equation is 9 times 8. But because we're using the distributive property strategy today, we're going to break apart the bigger number, which is the 9, into the 5 and the 4. Now that gives us two new equations, two smaller equations. So instead of multiplying 9 times 8, which is a larger equation, we broke that into two smaller equations. So now we have 5 times 8 plus 4 times 8. And then we're going to solve the smaller equations and put them back together to get the answer. So first we solve 5 times 8. What's 5 times 8? Well, if you said 40, then you're correct. And now we're going to solve 4 times 8. What's 4 times 8? That's right, 32. So now we're going to combine those numbers. We're going to put that back together. We're going to add those two numbers together from our smaller equations to get our answer. 40 plus 32. Which is 72. So that means that our total area is 72 square units. And that's correct if we check our math using a ratio table or just our knowledge of multiplication. 9 times 8 is 72. So all we did here was break apart 9 times 8 into two smaller equations to make it easier to calculate. All right, let's move on to letter B. Now we have a big array again here, one big rectangle, and what they did was they broke it apart. Have a gray section and a white section. So let's see what the total is for the length. Because on here they only showed you the 2 for the white section, right? In the problem it shows you 12 times 5, but you can always check to make sure that that's the actual measurement. So let's check the length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 in gray, right? Then 11, 12, 2 that are in white. So we have a length of 10 in gray and a length of 2 in white. And so that's how the 12 is going to be breaking apart. It's going to be broken apart into 10 and 2. So a 10 goes there in the blank. So instead of 12 times 5 for our area equation, right, we're going to break that 12 apart into 10 and 2. And so we'll end up with two smaller equations. So we're going to end up with the equation 10 times 5 plus 2 times 5. And we can go ahead and solve. And the good thing about this is that they did part of it for us. So 10 times 5 is what? That's right. If you said 50, that's absolutely correct. And 2 times 5 is 10, which they already wrote there for us. So now we just have to solve. Well, what's 50 plus 10? And if you said 60, that is correct. So that means that our area for the total area for the big rectangle is 60 square units. And that's correct because if you know how to complete the calculations for 12 times 5, if you use the standard algorithm, then the answer that you should have received should have been 60 also. All right, now if you want to go ahead and pause your video just to make sure that you have everything written down or just to check your work against my screen, go ahead and do so now. Okay, let's take a look at letter C. Now, the length of this rectangle has already been provided. It's 7. And the width of this rectangle is 13. If you count all of those units across the top, it should be 13. So your area equation is 7 times 13. Now, to make that a little easier to solve, we're going to use the distributive property and break apart the larger number in the equation, which is 13. So that 13 is going to be broken apart into 10 and 3. We have to have 10 gray and we have 3 white. So it's going to be broken apart into 10 and 3. Now, that gives us two new equations. We have 7 times 10 and 7 times 3. So we're going to go ahead and solve for 7 times 10, which is, that's right, 70. And we're going to solve for 7 times 3, which is 21. Very good. Now we're going to add those two numbers together. What's 70 plus 21? If you said 91, you're absolutely correct. So our area is 91 square units. 7 times 13 is 91. Again, all we did was use the distributive property to break apart the larger number to make it a little easier to solve. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to letter D. All right, if we look below the array, it shows us that our area equation is 9 times 12. So that means that the length of this big rectangle is 9 units. And the width of this big rectangle is 12 units. So our area equation is 9 times 12. But we're using a distributive property today, so we're going to break apart the larger number, which is the 12. So we're going to break apart that 12 based on the gray and the white sections. So what's the width of the gray section? If you said 10, you're correct. The width of the gray section is 10 units. And what's the width of the white section? 2. The width of the white section is 2 units. So we're breaking that 12 apart into a 10 and a 2. And that gives us 2 new smaller equations. Should make it easier to solve. So now we have 9 times 10 plus 9 times 2. Now let's go ahead and start solving. 9 times 10 is, if you said 90, you're absolutely correct. Plus 9 times 2, which is, if you said 18, you're absolutely correct. Now we just add those two smaller numbers. What's 90 plus 18? If you said 108, then you are absolutely correct. So our answer for our area is 108 square units. Now you may want to go ahead and pause your video right now so that you can check your work against mine or copy down anything that you think you may have missed. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says Finn imagines one more row of 9 to find the total area of, of a 9 by 9 rectangle, or 9 times 9 rectangle. Explain how this could help him solve 9 times 9. Okay, so as it stated, this rectangle, the length is 9 and the width is 9. Now actually, if the measurements are 9 by 9, then this is actually a square, because with a square, all of the sides are the exact same. So that would make this actually a square. 9 by 9 would be a square. All right, so the area equation for the original square would be 9 times 9 equals 81. But in this question, it says Finn imagines one more row of 9 to find the total area. So Finn is imagining this. I'm going to use blue lines to show you what Finn is imagining, okay? So Finn is imagining that instead of the length being 9, it's 10. And the width is still 9. So Finn's area equation would be 10 times 9 equals 90. And then what he would do is subtract that extra row, making it 90 minus 9 equals 81. Now, personally, that's a lot of work when all you would have to do is either count by nines or create a ratio table. But it's basically counting up to count back down. So the explanation, or the way that you can explain how this could help him solve 9 times 9, which is the actual answer to this question, is if you know that 10 times 9 equals 90, then you also know that subtracting a 9 from 90 would equal 81, which is the same as 9 times 9. So this explanation in yellow is the actual answer. But this is a very long way to complete a short problem. So again, this is just a strategy. Some people use it. To me, it's a lot longer than it should be. to solve this actual problem. But if you like to count up to count back down, then great. If you like to just solve it and you know your multiplication facts of 9 times 9 equals 81, or create a ratio table, that's a lot faster. All right, if you need to pause the video so that you can write down the information that's in that yellow box, which is the actual answer to the question, go ahead and do so now. Okay, this is the last question of our homework. It says, shade an area to break the 16 by 4 rectangle into 2 smaller rectangles. Then find the sum of the areas of the 2 smaller rectangles to find the total area. Explain your thinking. Okay, so I'm going to break this large rectangle apart. So it's a 16 by 4 rectangle. Using a distributive property, I'm going to break apart the largest number, which is 16. So the two numbers that I think of that live inside of 16 are 10 and 6. So I'm going to count a length of 10 units. That's 10 units. And I'm going to count a width of 4 units and shade it in. And you may need to pause the video right now to go ahead and count 10 units down, 4 units across, and shade it in because that's our first rectangle. Now, the area of our first rectangle is 10 times 4, which equals 40. Now I'm going to go ahead and count and shade in the area of my second rectangle, or the rectangle that's left. So when I count my length of the rectangle that's left, I have 6. And if I count the units of my width, I have 4. And I'm shading that rectangle in white. So you just leave it plain. So the area of my second rectangle is equal to 6 times 4, which equals 24. So now I have 2 rectangles, 2 areas, but I want to know the total with those rectangles pushed together. I want to know the total. So all I'd have to do is add my 40 plus my 24. My red rectangle to my white rectangle. I have to add my red rectangle to my white rectangle. And I start with my ones place. 0 plus 4 is 4. And 4 plus 2 is 6. So that means the total area of this 16 by 4 rectangle is equal to 64. Now, it also says explain your thinking. So if we break apart 16 into 10 plus 6 times 4, then we can solve smaller equations and put them back together to get the answer using the distributive property. That's the explain your thinking part right there in the yellow box. So you may want to pause the video to make sure that you can write your explanation down, or if you need to finish shading in your rectangles. Okay, well, lesson 7 homework is complete. Congratulations. As always, I hope this video helped you to complete your homework quickly and correctly. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.